welcome back to the Knits and Notions podcast with me, Kira, also known as Ash Strange Bun. I use they, them pronouns, and as usual, I'm super glad to be back in this space with all y'all, talk about all the crafty things. I don't even know where to start with today's episode because I have been trying to film this for a little bit, but I really want to know, like, if you're also a knitting podcaster or somebody who records yourself talking online. Sometimes I look back at footage of myself and I'm like, I was speaking 20 miles a minute and I didn't realize it. And I'm like, nobody will understand what I'm saying. That was my last recording of this episode. I did a couple days ago. I was just like going off because I was so excited. And I drank like way too much coffee that day. But it was just like way too chaotic. So I came back today in slightly more mellow spirits because it's a very sleepy Monday currently, to fill you all in on what I've been up to in life, in craft life and knitting life and everything like that. So if you follow me online, you may know that I recently graduated with my Master's of Social Work. Woohoo! It feels really weird to say that now I'm like an official social worker and no longer a student. And as I've discussed in previous episodes, I feel like it feels really wild to no longer have that identity as like a student anymore. And like I mentioned before, I'm still learning a lot of things, so I still consider myself like partially like a student in my profession, I guess. But yeah, it feels really wild to be able to be like, wow, I'm about to go out and do the thing that I've been really excited to do for, over 2 years now. I've been like working the field and preparing myself to get into the workforce. And yeah, I don't really have too much to say about graduation other than the fact that it was really lovely that my family got to come out. My brother and my mom and dad came out from Illinois. And also my family friends who are really dear to me, who I hadn't seen in like over 8 or 9 years, like all together, also came. And that was really awesome. So my family friends, like I had grown up near them and I had known like them since I was like 6 months old, like a literal baby. And like they were like some of my first friends. I grew up alongside their children and things like that. So it was really wild to have them come out to California where like I live, and now my other family friend also lives out here too. It's like we've come so far from being neighbors in Illinois, and to see them, have them see me graduate as a 27-year-old, like they've babysat me since I was a literal baby, like pooping my pants and stuff. So it's just like, it was a really wild moment. And also another highlight of my graduation was that Aaron was finally able to be there for my graduation. And I say that because when I graduated with my undergrad degree, he was not able to be there because he was working over here in California when I was back in Kansas graduating. And so he wasn't able to be there when I graduated my undergrad, and I thought that was going to be like my last graduation ever. But then obviously I got my master's and he was able to be there for that. So that was really nice. And yeah, the day was just like really full of a lot of joy for myself, my friends, and, our department at our school and things like that. So yeah, I'm just like really glad to finally be done with that. And to no longer have to dedicate like so much of my time towards homework and not getting paid for work because if any of y'all are also social work students or just any, I guess, like student of like a healthcare profession, I feel like this is very common in our work where you are expected to not get paid for your internships at all. Like I know there's some other professions and student like school programs that are like, yes, get paid for your internships, like paid internships, woo, but I feel like it's really common for social work internships to be mostly unpaid. And so over the past couple of years, I've done like over 1,000 hours of just like free work, and I'm just really ready to not do that anymore. So yeah, those are the vibes for graduated Kira, just doing the job hunt and all that sort of stuff. But I digress. Definitely not here to talk about that any longer. Just really glad that I have that new development in my life. But apart from that, due to my graduation, as I had mentioned last time, I've had so much time to reclaim for crafting, for knitting, for spinning, and also more recently for quilting. So if you're watching this now, you know that I recently had my Oops All Quilts update for my shop online, where I made a bunch of mini quilts. I think I made in total like 13 mini quilts. And I make them as like mini coasters or wall art. You know, you hang them on your wall in your office or anything like that. And I made the most I've ever made of those before. And I hand sew and hand piece, hand cut, hand quilt, hand bind, hand everything for those because I don't have a sewing machine. And so it takes me such a long time. And by the end of that experience, my fingers were so raw. And I'm just really like, I should probably get a sewing machine at some point. But I really just love like the hand sewn features to them. And I also find like hand sewing to be really meditative and really relaxing and really fun too. Like it's not like I don't like it at all, but yeah, right now it's just more like a thing I do because I have to. But I was really proud at how all those came out, and also the reception was super good. And that always feels amazing as a maker. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you might be able to relate. Whenever you make anything for anybody, right? Regardless if you're selling it or if it's just a gift or anything like that. When people are just like, I love it, like it obviously feels really great. And so that was really awesome. And especially with sewing and quilting, I feel like recently my skills have gotten so much better since where I started. And so I feel fully confident in my work, and to see other people recognize that just like warmed my heart so much. So yeah, that was super awesome. And later on in this video, I will have updates for my own personal quilting project, which if you have watched my very first knitting podcast episode, which has awful audio because I didn't know how to use my microphone at the time, you will know that I am working on a full-sized quilt, like a throw-sized quilt for myself. And I've never made a full-size quilt before. I've only made like minis and little things like that. And so I feel like as summer comes back around, I'm spending a little bit less time knitting and a little bit more time sewing. And so I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, that this summer will be the summer of my finished quilt. But of course, I'll keep you all updated on how that goes. But yeah, I have exciting updates for that later. And let me think, what else have I been up to? Oh, I've also been gaming again, video gaming. Like I mentioned, I've wanted to be doing more of that lately and just like doing more of my hobbies apart from just like craft hobbies. And excitingly, there have been so many good games coming out lately, especially for me, who like I'm a big Nintendo kid. I've always been a Nintendo kid growing up. I guess now I'm a Nintendo adult, always watching those Nintendo Directs and such. But Tears of the Kingdom, the new Zelda game, came out. I'm not a really big player of like these bigger open world types of games, especially when you have to like fight things and shoot things like that. I'm just like, it makes me so dizzy. I can never concentrate. But Aaron has been playing that, and it's been so amazing. I loved when he played Breath of the Wild, and that's been really fun to watch. I still haven't beat Minish Cap, even though I'm literally in the last area. Like I'm in the castle at the very end. It's like the last dungeon. Haven't finished that, but I did start playing We Love Katamari, which is it's not new, but it's a Katamari game that was finally ported to the Switch, which is one of the original Katamari games. And if you've never played Katamari Damacy or We Love Katamari at all, and you love video games, I would say definitely Google it. Watch some Let's Plays or something on YouTube about it. It's really wild, and definitely just get it and play it. It's one of the most fun games that I've ever played, and the aesthetics of it specifically have been something I've always been really obsessed with ever since it first came out on like PlayStation. But I never had a PlayStation as a kid, so when I saw it, I was like, what is this? I'm obsessed with these little guys. And now that they've ported them to Switch, I've been playing them. And yeah, it's really great. Side note, they have been making me, like, seeing all the little, like, Katamari characters, so they're, like, little cousins, or what they're called in the game, have been making me think of doing a little, like, Katamari update for my stitch markers, / maybe, like, gaming, nerdy cultures types things, like, an all-in-one update. I don't know. I just really want to make some Katamari things. Maybe I'll just make some for myself, but that's definitely been something I've been thinking of lately. Let me know if you play Katamari. I'd love to know that. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing in the gaming world. And then apart from that, I have been making headway on a lot of knitting projects and spinning projects that I've been really wanting to do for a while. And so I'm just gonna hop into it. I'm starting with what I'm wearing, which I'll insert a picture of here so you can see the full thing. But I am wearing my Stumble Dress finish by Lydia Morrow, or at What Lydia Made on Instagram. And I love it. I am so glad that it has still been cool enough where I live to be able to wear like a full knitted dress like this. So I knit this out of Pearl Soho linen quill, as I talked about before, and it's a fingering weight yarn. The fiber content is like, there's like alpaca, linen, and wool in it all together. It creates this really lovely, like soft, super drapey yarn with these really fun little flecks of linen throughout that I feel like gives the yarn a really lovely effect. And it's, of course, like, people have talked about it at end's length on like every knitting podcast, I feel like. People love it. It's a really great yarn, and I definitely agree. I've knit with the fingering weight version a number of times now and the worsted weight version, but I will say it's not ideal, obviously, for summertime. I feel like maybe if you made like a tank top out of it, it would be, but I definitely feel like it's a little bit warm for this to be like a full like summer garment for me. Definitely nice indoors, but I'm thinking it's kind of going to be more like a transitional, seasonal piece, or more like a fall layering piece, which I'm super excited for, to wear this with like tights and sweaters on top. I feel like it'd be super cute. But yeah, that's mainly just my gripe about my yarn choice. But apart from that, like, it is actually so lovely, like lovely to knit, like the whole process I really loved. It's super easy to follow the pattern. Like super duper easy. Like, I thought that knitting a dress would be intimidating. And I think I've talked about it a little bit before in terms of like, I was really worried that it would be like way too much knitting. And it would take forever. And like, that's cool too, because it's understandable, you're knitting a full freaking garment. But I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish it. And I really didn't want to like have an unfinished project like this, like languishing around forever. But I'm glad to say that not only did I finish it, but I was able to like pick it up, put it down, do all the things, and it was just such like a reliable project to have on my needles, because it's all stockinette. And so it just like flies by. It's super nice to have this around like all the time as a project for when you're watching TV and things like that. And I did frog this back once. So I had knit the full top and into the very beginnings of the skirt by like a couple inches. And I frogged that all the way back up and re-knit the whole thing during this process. And it's still only, like, I feel like I only had this on my needles for like 2 months or something wild like that. Maybe 2 or 3 months total. So yeah, it's like, it knits up really nicely, like very quickly in a really great amount of time. And also the construction is really great. Like I mentioned, when I frogged it, it was mainly because it was way too big. And this dress is meant to fit with a little bit, like, I mean, you can knit it however you want, right? But like, I'm thinking it's a little bit more of like a negative ease type of deal, because it's more figure hugging. And yeah, I really was like overestimating how much room I needed in it. And then I frogged it back and re-knit it. And I was really glad that I did that, because the size I knit now, like you can kind of tell from the armpits where my raglans end up, is that it is a little bit bigger than like going full, like a lot more negative ease. But I really like that about it because it gives you enough room to like move in it. You know, like if you're gonna eat a big meal or different things like that, if you're gonna get bloated or just like how your body shifts and changes throughout the day, it like allows for that. Partially because it's knit, so it's really flexible and stretchy anyways, and there's no part of this dress that feels like constricting at all. But yeah, I'm just really glad that I knit it with extra space, because I know like for me, throughout the day, I need something that's gonna go over my whole body to just be super flowy, super comfy and cozy, and this is it. My next thing I will say about this too is that I absolutely love the crew neck of this. Like it fits perfectly, and I've never had a crew neck fit me this well, where it feels super comfortable and doesn't, like, it sits high enough but it doesn't like choke you at all. And yeah, the construction, I just can't say enough like how amazing it is. And yeah, you can see more pictures of it on my Instagram to see like all the different aspects of it, but it's just a really lovely pattern. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And I'll definitely probably knit another one. If not another full dress, probably just like the tumble tee, which is the top portion of the dress that you can see here, because this is just such a great top. I could have a billion of these. So this is my stumble dress, and you might also notice I do have another accessory on today, which just came into my life yesterday by way of my really sweet friend Rachel. This is little mushrooms, so cute. This is a Heidi Kenney ceramic original necklace. These 3 little mushroom guys on it. And if you don't know Heidi Kenney, you can follow her Instagram over at My Paper Crane, I believe. On Instagram, I'll also link it. But she's an amazing artist. I first found her when she was making handmade plush of these like little food characters, little different things like that. She's done licensing work of her characters for Kid Robot, I believe, and she's done like different things like that, like manufactured plushes. Her illustrations are amazing, and she's recently also, well, not recently, but in recent years, she's also expanded her craft work that she sells into ceramics. And so yeah, my friend gifted me this necklace and I just like love it so much, so I couldn't help but wear it today for my podcast and I also want to wear it all the time. But yeah, so it feels really like a really lovely gift to have, an original piece of hers, and I think it looks really cute with my dress. So yes, that is what I'm wearing today. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start today by jumping into all my works in progress. And I have like just quilting stuff to talk about, some reading stuff to talk about. So stay tuned if you want to hear all about that. All right, so starting with my first work in progress, this is a very exciting update for you all and one that I'm feeling so hopeful about. So I'm just gonna drop my little ball of yarn as per usual and move my needles so I don't drop this whole thing off of them. But I have a very scrunchy yoke. And so this pattern is the White Mountain Sweater by Midori Hirose, I believe. And here's a little look at the yoke. Mostly just want to look at the yarn because it's just a very standard raglan, but I think this green yarn is really beautiful so far. And so, as I had mentioned in my last episode, I did buy this yarn when I was out in Illinois on my big yarn extravaganza with my mom. And I bought this yarn for Aaron to knit him his first ever fully hand knit garment by me for him that I promised him, or I gifted him a hand knit sweater for Christmas. And I tried to knit the sweater initially, and if you might remember, it turned out really poorly. It didn't fit well. The yarn was not the vibe. The pattern was not the vibe. So I'm happy to say I think this is the vibe. Like, these are all the vibes, and they're here, and I'm excited. So what makes this different than my other attempts is basically, first of all, I chose a yarn with more structure and a pattern with more structure. So this is a worsted weight yarn. The pattern, the way it will turn out with like the drape and everything like that is gonna be a lot more, I don't know, like more structured, just less drapey, you know, just less like flowy vibes and more like, I don't know what's the opposite of flowy, not flowy. I don't know. My descriptions are obviously so great today. But yeah, it's gonna be so good. So also the other story with this is that, as I've told you guys, I've struggled so much to find a pattern, to find yarn, to find everything that fits and works for Erin. And so I have already frogged this project 3 times. And this is my 3rd time that I've restarted the yoke in the construction. And my fingers are crossed. I think this is it. But I will give you all some tips and tricks on how to avoid frogging a billion times, I guess. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just basically I just want to tell you all my journey with this. But this has been a really great learning experience for knitting for somebody else who's not me, because the first thing I realized is that not all necks are equal. And that just seems super obvious to everybody because we're all different shapes and sizes. It's lovely, it's great. But something that I didn't realize is that I have a really pretty long neck. And so in most cases for me, whenever I knit a project that has a neckline, I always feel like, oh, 2 inches, that's fine of a crew neck, or, whatever, it'll just go down. But for Erin, his neck is a lot shorter than mine. And also his shoulder's a lot broader. So the neckline totally sits in a different way on him than it would on me or somebody else with a longer neck. And so my first realization was that I've initially started knitting the version of this pattern with a folded neckline. So it's a folded crew neck. But the pattern has you knit 4.5 inches of this neck ribbing. So it's one long big turtleneck basically, but then you fold that in half. So essentially you're making a 2-inch crew neck. But the thing is that I had Erin kind of try that, and it was just it was a turtleneck on him, even with the folded neckline. And that was just not the look, and also not what he wanted. And so I really found that for him, it was crucial to do a really short ribbed crew neck like this. And so I only knit 1 inch of the crew neck. And so definitely that's just pointers, measuring neck lengths and different things like that is something I never really think about for other people's patterns, or knitting other people's patterns, knitting patterns that I've knit for myself before. But that was a really big learning lesson for me. And then also was figuring out ease on somebody else and how they prefer it. It was one thing for me to be oh, I'm going to knit this with the intended amount of ease in the project, but I knew that he didn't want it to be super oversized, which is how this pattern is meant to fit. It's meant to fit with 13 inches or so of positive ease. And so I really basically had to just take a shot in the dark, guesstimate based on some of his other clothing about how much ease that he might want. And then I knit it once initially with just a very a lower amount of ease, and had him just try it on. I knit pretty much this much of the body, and then I knit a whole sleeve, and I was just try this on. And it was way too tight, and it would have been too tight even with blocking. So I definitely sized up. And so, yeah, that's where we are here today now. But I'm really, 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 really 100% sure. I'm going to say I'm 100% sure that this is going to work. And I'm so excited to finally have this finished. And it's flying off my needles. But it's knit with size 10 needles. It's super quick, super, super quick project. So yeah, here it is. And I'm excited to show you all where it ends up. Yeah. And also, as I have this project out, I also wanted to share a little fellow notion maker their work, which is on my knitting work right now. And so I wanted to show you all these little stitch markers I have on here. If you can see them, I hope you can. If not, I'll also insert a little picture. But these are 2, and I have 4. There's another 2 of them on here somewhere. Can't find them at the moment. But those stitch markers are by Riley at Soft Spoken, who makes the most lovely and beautiful stitch markers and knitting notions, and also recently buttons, all handmade by them. And it is so beautiful. The work is so beautiful. And honestly, something that I've always wanted some of her stitch markers. but I've never been able to get my little fingers on them yet. And these came in the form of a gift also from my friend Rachel. Super, super sweet. And I can guarantee, like, I can tell you now, if you've ever seen her work online and were like, wow, I really want them, but I'm unsure, I will tell you right now, you need to get some stitch markers for her. They're so light, they don't get in the way, and they're really beautiful. And I know a lot of people also, like, I've seen a lot of conversation online, people being like, what's the point in like fancy stitch markers? You can just use a rubber band, just use a paper clip, just use like these little plastic guys, you know? Or just whatever. And that's totally cool. Like, I get it. Like, I actually don't really knit with a lot of fancy or like handcrafted stitch markers or anything like that. But I will say it does make a really big difference, I feel like, in the experience of knitting for me, to have like a really cute like progress keeper or stitch markers just in my project. It's just kind of a part of a process that I think is really sweet, and you get to support an independent maker. And most times people who make like knitting notions are also knitters themselves, and so it feels really nice to be able to support a knitter, have their work on my work, and I don't know, for me it's like a really big community thing that I really love in terms of supporting people. Like, similar to like supporting people's like hand-dyed yarn businesses or things like that. It feels like there's a connection there, right? It's like maker to maker, crafter to crafter. We're sharing our things to help us along in the crafting process. And so, I don't know. I'm not trying to convince anybody to start getting into stitch markers, like handcrafted stitch markers, but those are my thoughts around it. And I know like some of them, like progress keepers, can be really heavy and like stretch out your stitches and things like that. Mine probably do that to people's knittings because I make kind of ridiculous little progress creepers. But yeah, that's my thoughts. That's my knitting hot take of the day, which is not a hot take. It's more of like a lukewarm personal opinion. But yeah, so really happy with this and these sweet little stitch markers that I will definitely treasure. And so I don't have too many knitting updates. I'm just going to briefly talk about this because this is my drop the yarn. This is my Best Vest by James & Watts. And I can tell y'all, this summer is going to be the summer of James & Watts for me. And I think also I've recently heard B said something similar, I think, of the Maker Bee podcast. But seriously, James has so many good patterns. Like, I feel like I can't say it enough. And there's so many of their patterns that I haven't knit or I haven't like had a fully finished project from. So I had knit their rib lace raglan before, and I ended up frogging it back, which is now in this dress. And I've also been really eyeing the dappled lace raglan, and I've recently got some yarn for it, which is like a summery yarn. And so I'm really excited for my next knitting podcast episode to show you all that because it's going to be so sick. But this is my update on my Best Vest. So I'm really excited for this to be finished, but I haven't had like the motivation to get my little fingers working on this as much. I think mostly because I'm knitting the full length vest version. So this is all the body, and this like little stitch marker here, that's where my V-neck is going to start. And so as you can see, it's going to be quite a big vest, and it's going to be super cozy. And I'm really, really excited for it. But yeah, I just haven't been feeling the vibes. But I just want to show you all the progress on it. I know it's kind of like lumpy and just not blocked, so I don't know. But the yarn is really lovely, and I just want to show you all how it has been knitting up. Really fun. So yeah, that's just my little update on this. And if anything, it's just to say, like, you know, sometimes you're just not feeling it, and it's okay to have a little whip that just kind of sits. Even though I was doing this as a knit along with some other friends, I know eventually I'll get to work back on it, but now is not the time. But yeah, that is my little update. And so my last strictly knitting related thing is actually a finished object, which I have more finished objects that aren't like knitting necessarily to show later on, but I figured I'd just get this out of the way in this little section. But this is my first summer knit that I've done this year so far, and the yarn is so fun. I feel like this is just like the most summery, like kind of out there thing I've knit in a while. And so this is definitely a project of me trying to get out of my comfort zone, knit new things. That is to say, I've knit a ripple crop top before. This is Ripple Crop Top by Jessie May. But I knit the sleeves extra short, and I also used the rest of the yarn that Kaya, Little Homebody Handmade, dyed this yarn and gifted to me. And this is in their colorway Pine Grove. And so this is a really funky like yarn. It looks like super marled, all this fun stuff. This was my first time ever knitting with a hand-dyed, like indie-dyed yarn and actually alternating skeins. And let me tell you, it was a game changer. There's so much less pooling. I think the overall effect is a lot more fun. And yeah, I really love it. It's super lightweight, fingering top, and super airy and baggy and just like ready for summer. I will be wearing this all around my house this season because it is officially getting so warm here. Like today, the high is only 80, which for us over here in the desert, like that's cool. Like cold, not just like cool, like rad, but like cool as in the weather. But it is quickly heating up, and I used to be very like anti-summer knit, and this is me reforming myself into a summer knit person. And so, yeah, I guess to talk about that a little bit, I'm wondering if anybody else has ever felt the same, but it really took me a while to get into summer knitting because I convinced myself that like I hated summer yarns. And so typically in the summer, it's like a lot more common to knit with like cotton. It's a lot more of an airier, breathable fabric that gets created, or like linen or silk or all these lovely like, warm weather yarns. And I was like, always told myself I didn't like how it looked. But that all changed when I knit my outline raglan in Pearl Soho's Cotton Pure yarn. And that was the first time I found a cotton yarn that I was like, this is amazing. I need to knit so many things out of it. And then I partially contribute my love of summer knitting to James and Watts because so many of their patterns, so many like mesh patterns, recently came out with like that mesh tank top that is like, looks so cool, super airy, super summer friendly. Yeah, like a lot of their patterns just turned me into a summer knitter, I feel like. And so I will be trying out some silk yarn for the first time to knit a top out of for summer. I'm really excited about, but yeah, I feel like I've fully succumbed to the fact that I'm gonna need to get into knitting summer garments for myself because it's just too freaking hot out here to be in denial any longer. So yeah, this is my first adventure into making myself a knit summer wardrobe. And I'll definitely be taking y'all along with all the rest of the stuff that I hopefully make this summer. And so switching gears a little bit is time for the spinning section of this podcast, which I'm so excited to tell y'all what I've been up to with spinning. So I will start by showing y'all this finished yarn. Two of these skeins are fully finished, so I washed the yarn, everything. This skein is unwashed, but it's fully spun up. And this is very exciting because this is my first fully chain plied yarn. Well, it's my first chain ply in general, not even just fully. I will just like hold it here for a little bit. So this was my first ever chain ply, my first skein. And you can see like there are little bits in there, I feel like, that are a little bit like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you're getting the hang of this. But it has come so quickly to me, which I was so surprised by because I used to be so intimidated by chain plying. Specifically when I've been doing this plying on the fly on my Turkish spindle. But like, this is my second skein and I was just like, like absolutely gagged by myself. Like I was just like, what? I made this? Like, I don't know what it is about like chain plied yarns that just like look like yarns. You know what I mean? Like it looks like a yarn, even though all yarn looks like yarn, even like singles look like yarn because they can be yarn. But I think it is just the nature of chain ply. It's so round It's so voluptuous. It's so beautiful. The ply just like looks amazing. I feel like chain plied yarn just like looks more like a yarn to me. I just really love it. I want to chain ply all yarns now. I just like every yarn I make, I want it to be chain plied from now on. And so here's a little look at like what the yarn looks like finished versus unwashed. So finished for me just means the yarn has been washed, it's been snapped or thwacked. I usually snap and thwack my yarn, my hand spun. And so this has not been snapped nor thwacked nor washed. It's just been spun. And so yeah, there's a little bit of a difference. You might be able to tell the difference in like distribution of the twist in the ply. I think there's a difference, but yeah, super exciting. Oh, I forgot to say what this is that I've been spinning. So I'll show you my spindle. But this is progress on the spin. Got my little chain ply loop there, my little ply on the fly outfit going. About to start a new cop on this, but this is some BFL wool dyed by Nest Fiber. It's part of their fiber club, Nest Fiber Club, I believe it's called, which I've never had a subscription to, but I have gotten the very lovely chance to spin some Nest Fibers, Fiber Club yarns, wools, fibers, because I had purchased a braid off of my friend Annabelle, which was the last spin I feel like I talked about a little bit ago. And then this was very lovingly, sweetly gifted to me by my friend Tasha, because it was a color that was like not colorway that was like just not vibing with their vibe. And if you know, I feel like I say vibe like way too much, like I need to chill, but it just wasn't their colors. And so I was like, I'm trying to get more blues. I'm trying to go all out, like go do some wild things with color lately. Hell yes, I would like this. And I'm just so happy with the results. And I'm really happy with the method of plying on the fly. Just, I love Turkish cops, like the God's Eye cop on Turkish spindles. So lovely, so fun to make. But for those who aren't familiar with the ply on the fly method, basically what it is you are spinning your singles, and as you like compile up a decent amount of singles, like however much your spindle could accommodate, you basically form a temporary cop on your spindle, and then as you accumulate singles, then you this is really hard to explain without showing y'all, but you basically accumulate a bunch of singles, bring them off your spindle, and then you chain ply them. So it's a way of being able to essentially spin your singles at the same time as plying your yarns. So then when you're finished with your spin, you are essentially left with a finished yarn. You just have to wash and finish it. So that's obviously kind of hard to explain without physically showing you how it's done. So I will leave the link in the description to the video that I used to find a method of ply on the fly that works for me. It is by a spinner on YouTube called Spinning Sarah. That's the channel. And so definitely take a look at their channel and look for their ply on the fly video, which like I said, I will link it in the description. But it's really easy to learn, I feel like. The part of it that I also think makes it super easy is that it uses essentially like a park method. So for those of y'all who are spinners, and especially when you started spinning, like for me, when I first started spinning on my drop spindle, I would do something called park and draft. So essentially you are drafting or pre-drafting some of your fiber out, and then like with your spindle parked, so you're holding it without it spinning. And then once you have enough, drafted fiber out to make more yarn, essentially, you add twist. So it's kind of like you're taking a pause, like you're adding twist and then waiting for it to come into the fiber, stopping, adding it to your cop, getting more out, you know, type of that sort of thing. Like it's slower, you're able to have more control over your spin compared to trying to just like spin and draft at the same time, which is super difficult to do as a beginner. Like that was something I struggled to do because it's really hard to gauge like the amount of spin necessary or like amount of twist necessary to keep your spindle from dropping and keeping your drafting fiber attached while also, you know, making sure it's not over twisted or all those sorts of things. So basically I've been using like, I'm calling it like a park and ply method in my head, where when I am making the chains for the chain ply, so have my little chain ply loop and bringing it up to make the new loop with like the other single. So like when you think about chain plying, there's like this loop and there's, yeah, okay. Never mind. I'm just not going to explain it. I don't know how to explain it. Just watch the videos on YouTube. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. I am not a tutorial channel, as y'all can tell. All that to say, and my awkward demonstration aside, just watch videos. It's a really accessible way to learn ply on the fly. Is all I'm trying to say. It's just really nice. I feel like I have a lot more control, and I think that's why my first attempts at chain plying have ended up really nice and even, because I'm giving myself plenty of time to kind of just like work on that ply and everything like that. So that's all I have to say there. Moving right along. So as I was speaking about fiber and spinning and such, I wanted to go ahead and showcase a little bit more of some stuff that Natasha sent me. So some more fibery things that came into my life lately. Always fun to see. I love to see like what other people get or come into their lives. And this braid is lovely. It's Falkland. I believe this is koomassee, if I'm remembering correctly, but so fun. Am I right, y'all? It's so fun. I just love the opportunity to try out new colors, especially in spinning. Like I've been mentioning in previous episodes, I'm really trying to find new colors, try new things, not try to, you know, I'm trying to discover my colors, so to speak, like colors that really vibe with me. But also I feel like it's really fun to like also not really have colors and just be like, try all colors and try new combinations and just see what I can make. And so I really love this braid, and I feel like it really represents an adventure for me in fiber crafting. Of course, it has a lot of green and purple in it, which I love, but then there's some colors in it that are like less in my wardrobe. So a lot of reds and oranges and yellowy stuff, and some brown. So yeah, I'm really excited to spin this, and y'all know I will be chain plying this. That's what I'm up to lately. Speaking of spinning though, like I have a lot of little spinning projects still going on, but you will hear from me soon about my sweater spin because it's coming. So I might not spin this until the fall because I really want to try spinning my sweater quantity of yarn, and now that I know how to apply on the fly, it will be so, I feel like it's going to go so much quicker. So I'm really excited about that. So the next thing that I have to share with you all that came into my life is also from Natasha, but it's some really fun yarn. So these are both by Qing Fiber, I believe is how you pronounce it. I will insert a correction if I pronounced it wrong, but this is some indie dyed yarn. If you're familiar, it is like really coveted online. I really love the work of this dyer specifically, and it's definitely yarn that I never would have came into my life anyways, because I believe you can only get it at certain places. I rarely see it out and about in yarn stores or other retailers that I've shopped at with before. But Natasha happened to have some and was like, is this your colors? Like, does this vibe? And I was like, yes, these are all colors. Like, I feel like this looks very similar colorway to Pine Grove, the yarn that I was knitting with by Kaya. So I was just like, yes, like, yes, like, yes. But I did want some advice on what y'all would knit with this. So I have a superwash merino, very standard fingering weight yarn here. And then this is their melted suri yarn. So this is baby suri alpaca and merino. And I'm just not sure what to knit with these, like if I should knit with them together or if I should try to knit with this on its own, the fluffy yarn, because I have 2 skeins of this and 2 skeins of this. And so I'm not too sure, but I would really love your advice because I've never knit with this suri yarn ever or any type of suri yarn before. So I'm not sure if it's like best by itself or held together, but yeah, I'm really excited to work with this. So I will be updating you all eventually on where this ends up. But yeah, really grateful to add this to my stash and really excited to work with it. Okay, so an unintentional theme of this episode also is Heidi Kenney, because my friend, like my necklace, my friend Rachel also gifted me some fabric that is printed with her illustrations. And so this is like a little woodland print. And if you know me, you know I love the woodland themes all the time. Mushrooms, yes, sign me up. Rachel also gave me this cute little jelly cat. It's a little bunny with a mushroom. Anyways, I digress. Super cute. But I'm super excited to work with this. I just wanted to share with you all some new fabric that came into my life. And yeah, I just need to get a move on with some of my quilting projects. And so this is representative of stuff I'm working on for my own personal quilting project that I wanted to share, because I'm making these little sawtooth star blocks so this is with, I just like ripped some strings off of this, but this is with my all-time favorite Garden Jubilee illustrated fabric by Phoebe Wall. And so if you're familiar with my mini quilts, you know that I typically use these little charm blocks, I guess is what I'm calling them, for backings for my minis. But I've decided I had a bunch left over because I bought a lot of that fabric, and I decided, let me just put these into a handmade quilt for myself because I want this fabric around. I love it so much. I love working with it. I love looking at it. It just makes me so happy. And so I'm incorporating some stars into my quilt, and I'm really, really excited. So this is my latest little hand-pieced, hand-sewn quilt block that I think is so cute. And there's like a bunch of different illustrations on these little blocks, so there'll be different little icons in the middle here, and I'm just so excited. So hopefully next time y'all see me, I'll have a couple rows of that quilt pieced together, all sewn together, but we will see where I land with all that. Okay, so the last, but certainly not least thing that I wanted to share with you all is a book. And so I will say, in full disclosure, I'm not a huge reader. Most of my reading recently has been, for school. And so I'm slowly trying to trickle back into getting into reading again. Something I discovered about myself is that I really cannot read on e-readers or like on screens. I don't really know why, but it's just really hard for me to pay attention and like maintain attention reading that way. And so I've really just been trying to get back into some of these books on my shelf because I can like pay more attention and connect more with the work when a book is in my hand. And this has been a really lovely book to connect with because it's also crafting related. And so this is This Long Thread by Jen Hewett. The subtitle is Women of Color on Craft, Community, and Connection. So you can already see why I love this. And I've talked about this briefly before because I won this book in a giveaway by, what was it? Oh my gosh. Something, I'll link it. So I will link where this book came from. But it was super amazing to start reading this because it just emanates so much of our crafting community online, but specifically of crafters of color. And so this book is compiled of, it has a survey that the author conducted on online. It had over like 300 some odd responses from crafters of color, all about their relationship to craft, their ethnicity, what crafts they do, if they're a hobbyist, if they have a business, everything about it. And then there's also interviews as well as personal essays from crafters of color including mostly women, but also some non-binary folk, in the text about their crafting practices. And I will tell you all that this has been such a healing book to read as a crafter, particularly for me, like somebody who tends to have a lot of imposter syndrome around crafting, and also feeling that way because of the vast underrepresentation of crafters of color and communities of color in the fiber craft space. That tends to happen. I sometimes can feel a little bit like alienated in the community. Not as much anymore because I have a really great friendship base and like a really great feed that I've curated for myself of other crafters of color, queer crafters, trans crafters, everybody who's just like me and who gets it. But this book has also just lended so much more comfort in terms of like how other people approach craft and where I see myself in their processes as well. So many excerpts from this book that just connect with me so hard. I wish I saved some of the quotes, but there's a lot of discussion as well on crafting for yourself and not trying to match store-bought crafted items, like particularly in sewing. A lot of people talk about like trying not to be so perfectionist in our craft and how to hone your skills, and those are things that I'm always like thinking a lot about, how to not like fall into the traps of trying to make things look professional, whatever that means, and also to still honor the handcrafted nature of our crafts, because at the heart of it, like that's what we're doing. And, it's a tradition that's passed down through generations. And there's also so many stories of that in here. And as well as like stories from indigenous people who are like 6th generation weavers. And yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. If not because if you don't like relate to any stories, at least you can hear the stories of so many crafters of color and their histories with it, and I think that's just so important. And also you can find a lot of cool people to follow online through here, because a lot of the crafters are also in the online space and sharing their stuff, and so that was really awesome. It's been a really great way to curate my feed even more to like all the people I want to see making stuff, so yeah, highly, 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 highly recommend this book. So engaging, so lovely, cannot recommend it enough. Okay, and with that brings the end of my knitting podcast. I need to go cook dinner and go hang out with Aaron and Spicy. So I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me. It was great, as always. I had fun. Hope you had a good time too. And I will be back in this space to talk to you all about summer knitting and all the fun stuff I hopefully will get up to in the meantime. But yeah, thanks for joining me here. Bye!